So as we continue on and you look at example number 3, kind of goes through the exact same stuff we just did for example 2, part 1, part A and B. And then if we start looking at example number 4, we go back to it, because yesterday all we talked about was just pulling out a negative. Because the biggest thing, no matter what we're doing in this whole thing, the only thing that we have to make sure is that we don't have a negative in front of this. Because again, dealing with the negative makes it more complicated. Let's just get rid of the negative. And we're also trying to get rid of this number here that's in the front there, because that's really, compared to what we did when we first started, is what's throwing us for the loop. So that'll be the first thing. So the one thing I can do, and that we learned from yesterday, is that I can get rid of this negative, first of all. So I'm going to pull out a negative right now. I'm going to use my green pen here. So if I pull out that negative, then basically I'm taking a negative from here, and so I'm going to take a negative from here and here. It's just basically changing the sign, right? So if I take away a negative, I'm just left with 4x squared. And when I took a negative from here, this now becomes plus 8x. And then when I take a negative from here and I pulled it out, it's going to be negative, or minus 5. And that's what we did yesterday as we first started this off. Now what happens is, if you take a look on example number 4 there, all of a sudden, if we're going to go ahead and we'll keep track of our negative, we'll just keep that on the outside. When we start to do the factoring, we start looking at the FOIL method on this, we have a lot of different options, that we can end up putting here. We can have the x, and the x. That's not the problem, The problem becomes, all of a sudden, what are we going to use to get 4? Well, the different ways to get 4 is 1 and 4. So I could put a 1 and a 4 here. I could also do a 2 and a 2, because 2 times 2 is also 4. For the 5, if I was going to do this here, I could have, for 5, it's going to be 1 and 5, but since it's negative, it can either be negative 1 and positive 5, or it could be positive 1 and negative 5. And now I have to go through and I have to look at all these options. What if I put 1 and 4 here, and I put negative 1 and negative 5? What if I put 1 and 4 here, but I put 1 and negative 5? What if I put 2 and 2 here, but then I put negative 1 and negative 5? Or what if I put 2 and 2 here, and I do 1 and negative 5? There are all these different possibilities and options. That's what the book is showing right there, And so there's nothing wrong with doing that. A lot of trial and error. What I like to do is show you a surefire method way that goes ahead and gets ourselves factoring these, since that's really the ultimate purpose, is to factor these and break them down. And so underneath this lesson right here, this video, if you click the link that's just going to be just below this one, it's going to show you a thing that's called, I think the guy even calls it, he calls it his Kung Fu method. So again, Kung Fu, because it's going to just chop this thing up in no time. And so I think that's what he calls the method, is the Kung Fu method. So if you take a look at that, then we're going to come back, we're going to look at this, and we'll see how does that Kung Fu method end up solving the same problem, which is, you look at example number 4, there are a lot of different options. And you can do it that way. I'm going to show you in just a few steps. You can end up finding and guaranteeing that you find the factoring of this problem right here.